Before you learn how the world changed, help our channel grow. Click that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what we explain next. The year is 2001. The dot-com bubble has just burst, and the U.S. economy is shaky, bracing for a mild recession. But it's still a peacetime economy. Global, interconnected, and operating on one fundamental assumption, that the world was more or less stable. Then, the assumption shattered. This video is not about the tragic events of that day. It's about the economic aftershock. We all know about the immediate damage, the markets closing, but that was just the appetizer. The real story is how 9/11 permanently rewrote the rules of the U.S. economy, creating a $4 trillion secret, a hidden architecture of spending, debt, and security that we all live inside today. The first hit was paralysis. For the first time since World War I, the New York Stock Exchange shut its doors and kept them shut. For 4 trading days, global capitalism's heart stopped beating. When it reopened, it was a bloodbath. In 1 week, $1.4 trillion in stock value vanished. But this wasn't just a Wall Street problem. It was an every street problem. The entire U.S. airspace was grounded. Suddenly, an industry built on movement couldn't move. The airlines, Delta, United, American, were losing hundreds of millions per day. They were days, not weeks, from total bankruptcy. The government had to act, passing a $15 billion bailout just 10 days later to keep the planes from falling out of the sky, financially. Then came the insurance nightmare. The claims were the largest in history, estimated at over $40 billion in 2001 dollars. It was an act of war, which many policies didn't even cover. The event was so massive, it threatened to bankrupt the entire global insurance industry. But the most critical response came from the Federal Reserve. Chairman Alan Greenspan knew the economy wasn't just bleeding, it was freezing up. Money wasn't moving. Banks wouldn't lend to each other. He called it financial gridlock. So Greenspan turned on the financial fire hose. The Fed blasted the system with liquidity, $100 billion per day in that first week. It was an unprecedented promise. Any bank that needs cash, we will provide it. Simultaneously, they slashed interest rates, again and again. This saved the economy from immediate collapse. But this flood of easy money didn't just disappear. It had to go somewhere. Many economists argue these rock-bottom interest rates planted the seeds for the next great crisis, the U.S. housing bubble and the financial collapse of 2008. They had stopped the fire, but soaked the foundation. The second phase of the transformation wasn't about emergencies. It was about building something new. Before 9/11, Homeland Security wasn't really a thing. It was a concept. After 9/11, it became an industry. In 2002, the U.S. government executed the largest reorganization since World War II. The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, was born, merging 22 different agencies, from the Coast Guard to the Secret Service, into a single behemoth with one mission: prevent another attack. And for the average person, the change was immediate. The Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, was created. Suddenly, security was no longer a minimum wage job. It was a massive, federalized force, and it wasn't free. Think of it as a new security tax on everything. The cost of those scanners, those procedures, and that time spent in line, it all gets baked into the price of your ticket. Multiply that friction across the entire economy, shipping, trucking, ports, and you have billions of dollars diverted from productivity to protection. An entirely new economic sector was built, funded by billions diverted from other national priorities. But the DHS was small potatoes compared to the biggest economic shift of all, the War on Terror. This is where the $4 trillion secret is hiding. When the U.S. invaded Afghanistan in 2001 and Iraq in 2003, it chose to finance these wars in a way it had never done before. In World War II, President Roosevelt raised taxes and sold war bonds to the public. He asked the country to pay for the war. In 2001 and 2003, the message from the White House was the opposite. Taxes weren't raised. In fact, they were cut. Americans were encouraged to spend to keep the economy afloat. So how was the war paid for? The answer is the National Credit Card. The government funded the wars almost entirely through debt. It borrowed the money, pushing the cost onto the national debt. This off-budget spending meant the true cost was hidden from the public balance sheet for years. For years, we thought the cost was around $2 trillion. But research, like the Cost of War project at Brown University, revealed the true, mind-blowing number. When you add the direct military spending, the increased budgets for DHS, the aid to veterans, and, this is the killer, the interest we are still paying on that 20-year-old debt, the total cost exceeds $4 trillion, and counting. That is the $4 trillion secret of the title. It's the price tag of 9/11 that was never written on the sticker. It's a debt burden that has reshaped America's financial future, limiting its ability to spend on infrastructure, education, or future crises. So what did 9/11 ultimately do to the U.S. economy? It didn't just cause a recession. It fundamentally remolded it. It triggered a financial fire hose from the Fed, saving the day but soaking the foundation for the 2008 crisis. It built a new expensive security wall inside the economy, creating the permanent friction of the DHS and TSA that we now take for granted. And most importantly, it funded a 2-decade war with a national credit card, hiding a multi-trillion-dollar bill in the national debt, fundamentally changing America's balance sheet forever. The economy we have today, with its deficits, its security focus, and the lingering echoes of easy money, wasn't an accident. It wasn't a simple recovery. It was an architecture redesigned in the shadow of September 11th. The economic consequences are clearly massive, but they are complex. What part of this economic shift surprised you the most? Do you see these costs in your daily life? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below.